buried him with that line about, I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, your nose, Jack Kennedy. Well, that was a great moment for Lloyd Benson, for the Democrats. But let's remember, who wound up in the White House. The Republicans won that. So we had some conversations. One of the good things about being in Washington is you kind of have some access to some folks who've seen some things and done some things. Benson, so for the Democrats, but we had the ability today to kind of talk to people who have been in these presidential debates and these big time debates. Tim Kaine, senator from Virginia, he was Hillary Clinton's vice presidential pick back in 2016. You'll remember, Tim Kaine, said that in his view, your biggest job tonight is to not only kind of give out your talking points, but also, almost like a doctor, do no harm.
Do no harm. That's so right.
Because the campaigns are rolling this patient out to you on a table tonight.
Exactly.
And saying, please, take our campaign for the next 90 minutes and try not to, return him worse than he was or worse than she was. So they're handing this whole thing over to the vice presidential nominees. And remember, these are people who weren't part of these campaigns,
right?
Almost 2.5 months ago, even less time for Tim Walz. There's going to be a lot of them trying to introduce themselves to people. But, the main job tonight, if they have one task, they need to hammer home their main talking points of their campaign. It's great
Tom, we got to leave it at that. Sorry. Thank you so much, Tom Fitzgerald. Can't thank you enough for all that insight. Tom, we'll check in soon.
Good to talk to you.
All right. In the meantime here, we still have our live picture there inside of the spin room. We're going to go outside the spin room in just a moment here. Standing by for us live outside in New York City, of course, is going to be our friend Fox News's Connor Hansen. He has the pulse of everything going on outside. He joins me. Connor, good to see you, man. So how are the candidates preparing? The candidates are there, I would imagine. We're 5 minutes out.
That's right, Andrew. And leading up to tonight, both Tim Walz and J.D. Vance have done lots of campaigning all over the country, making their case for why their ticket would be best for the White House. They've even traded some personal jabs as well. But tonight will be the biggest audience either of them have to get their points across just less than 5 weeks before Election Day.
This is going to be good.
The stage is set in New York City for the vice presidential debate hosted by CBS News. There won't be an in-person audience, but the rules will be slightly different from last month's presidential debate. Mics will not be muted, giving the nominees the ability to talk over each other, and hosts will not actively fact-check the nominees, leaving it up to their opponents.
We have two candidates on the debate stage tonight who have a fundamentally different view of what America should look like over the next 4 years.
Both nominees have been prepping with close advisors. Senator Vance has reportedly held mock debates with Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer, playing the role of his former colleague, Tim Walz.
I've spent the last month literally watching Tim in all of his debates all the way up to the present. He's very good at it.
Governor Walz has reportedly been prepping in Minneapolis, with Secretary Pete Buttigieg playing the role of Vance.
Yeah, I think he's looking forward to debating J.D. Vance.
From deadly flooding in North Carolina to escalating fighting in the Middle East, the nominees will likely be asked about a wide range of major issues. And Vice President Harris has said repeatedly that she wants another debate with former President Trump, but it does not appear that will happen before Election Day. Andrew?
So, Connor, are you going to be anywhere near the spin room or not? We know that's kind of the locus after these debates. The surrogates will make the case for said candidate here. I would imagine the issues are going to be brought up. What are you looking for in this debate, Connor?
Well, I personally won't be inside, but we will be watching it very closely. There is limited space in there. What's really interesting about tonight, there were already so many issues you knew were going to come up, whether it's immigration, the economy, reproductive rights. But just in the past week and even today, so much breaking news here in the U.S. and around the world. We have deadly flooding in North Carolina and so much of the southeast. We have strikes at some of our major ports, and of course overseas, the escalating violence in Israel and Lebanon. So likely new topics being added as the day went on to this debate that these nominees will have to pivot and be ready to answer. So it should be a fascinating night tonight. So we're going to tune in and watch all that for you and check back in, Andrew.
That's right. It's going to be a fascinating 90 minutes. Connor Hansen there, live for us in Midtown Manhattan. Connor, thanks so much. Talk soon.
Thanks.
All right, in the meantime here, we are just moments away from the very start of this vice presidential debate there on CBS News. It will be simulcast, as you know, here on Live Now from Fox. So that does it for some of our pre-debate coverage. Wanted to get in all these questions about the issues at hand. Connor Hansen going down a long litany of just the news that happened just today with Iran's attack against Israel, the very start of the port strike. So many ports up and down the eastern seaboard closed because their workers are picketing. And the aftermath, the recovery continues in the wake of Hurricane Helene. President Biden, Vice President Harris, and former President Trump have visited and or will be visiting some of these devastated communities here. In the meantime, though, remember, I just want to put up on this for you that question that we posed to you, about 40 minutes ago, and that is, will the VP debate sway your vote in the 2024 election? You can scan that QR code. You can visit livenowfox.com/connect. You can answer yes, no, or undecided. Remember, that's one of a piece of a similar question we brought you just this hour. Have you registered to vote? Yes, no, or you're not even going to. So we want to hear from you, as we always do in these moments, as political history can be made in these moments on the debate stage, at the conventions. We're 34 days out, and we do want to go now to CBS News. Let's listen.
Vice President of the United States, Democratic Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota and Republican Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio.
Now, this is likely the final debate of this election cycle, and voting is already underway in 20 states. CBS News polling shows this remains a race either presidential candidate could win. The CBS News vice presidential debate starts now.
Fight for every single vote, and we're going to take this country back.
And we are ready to continue to build the future together.
We're going to turn this whole country red with President Donald J. Trump's leadership.
You know what's at the end of this little journey? Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
This is a CBS News special, live from CBS News headquarters in New York. America Decides, the vice presidential debate.
Yeah, we'll see if they really let America decide.
And thank you for joining us for tonight's CBS News vice presidential debate. We want to welcome our viewers on CBS, on other networks here in the U.S. and around the world. We have a consequential night ahead, and our focus is the issues that matter to you, the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance, tonight meeting for the first time.
I'm Margaret Brennan. In order to have a thoughtful and civil debate, these are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate, who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute to make further points, with an additional 1 minute each at the discretion of the moderator. The primary role of the moderators is to facilitate the debate between the candidates, enforce the rules, and provide the candidates with the opportunity to fact-check claims made by each other.
CBS News reserves the right to mute the candidates' microphones to maintain decorum. We have not shared the questions or topics with the campaigns. The stage is set. Governor, Senator, thank you for joining us.
Hey, they had to let you know they ain't play ABC.
Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed. thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers
So we have 40,000 U.S. troops fighting Israel's war. Nice.
It has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and...
Is this about Israel and Iran or Donald Trump?
Be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better